The tune was infectious, a happy little melody that burrowed into your brain and refused to leave. It spoke of sunshine and laughter, of muddy puddles and jumping up and down. They called her Peppa Pig, a cartoon character, a figment of someone's imagination, but she was real, or rather I was supposed to be. My name, the name etched on the half-rotted wooden nameplate above my bed, was Peppa. My mother always hummed that tune, her voice trembling slightly, a discordant note in the otherwise cheerful melody. Her eyes, when they met mine, held a chilling mixture of fear and guilt. Peppa. The name felt foreign on my tongue, a constant reminder of my parents' shattered dreams. They had envisioned a bubbly, playful child, a miniature version of the cartoon character they adored. Instead, they got me. Silent, withdrawn, haunted by a darkness I couldn't explain. They never spoke about it, about the day their dreams turned into a nightmare. The day the doctor laid a lifeless pink bundle in my mother's arms. A girl who would never oink or giggle or jump in muddy puddles. So they tried again. This time they whispered everything would be perfect. Our farmhouse stood alone at the end of a long, winding road, shrouded by trees that seemed to claw at the sky. Their branches, gnarled and twisted, cast long skeletal fingers across the overgrown lawn. The farmhouse itself was a study in neglect, paint peeled from the walls like sunburnt skin. The porch sagged precariously, threatening to collapse under the weight of forgotten memories. Inside, dust motes danced in the pale slivers of sunlight that managed to penetrate the grime-coated windows. This was my world, a world devoid of color and laughter, a world where the only sounds were the creaking of the house and the relentless ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Sometimes late at night, when the wind howled like a banshee and rattled the windows in their frames, I would hear snippets of music. It drifted in from the outside world, a world I was forbidden to enter. The cheerful strains of a familiar tune, a catchy jingle about a pig named Peppa. My parents kept me isolated, hidden away from prying eyes. They claimed it was for my own safety, that the world was a dangerous place for a child like me. But I knew the truth. They were ashamed of me, ashamed of my silence, my stillness, my inability to live up to the name they had bestowed upon me. The outside world became a tantalizing mystery, a forbidden fruit I yearned to taste. Every morning my mother would dress me in a pink dress, the same shade as the cartoon pig that haunted my existence. She would brush my hair, her touch gentle yet firm, trying to tame my unruly curls into the perfect pigtails. But no matter how hard she tried, I could never be the Peppa of their dreams. My father would watch these rituals with a brooding silence, his disappointment a tangible presence in the room. He saw me as a failed project, a constant reminder of his inability to control his own destiny. His frustration manifested in angry outbursts, his voice booming through the house like a clap of thunder. I became a receptacle for his rage, his bitterness, his shattered dreams. "Why can't you be normal?" he would roar, his words like shards of glass piercing my heart. I don't remember much about my 6th birthday. It's as if my mind has blocked out the memory, shielding itself from the trauma that unfolded that day. But there are fragments, shards of recollection that pierce through the fog of forgetting. The smell of vanilla cake, sickly sweet and cloying. The garish pink and green decorations, a desperate attempt to inject some cheer into our dreary existence. And the gift, a DVD of Peppa Pig episodes, its plastic wrapping glinting under the dim light of the single bulb that illuminated the living room. I remember my father's forced smile as he handed me the gift, his eyes holding a glimmer of hope, a desperate plea for me to finally understand, to finally become the daughter he craved. But most of all, I remembered the silence. Something shifted in my father that day. Perhaps it was the crushing weight of his own expectations, the realization that I would never be the daughter he had envisioned, or maybe it was a darker impulse, a twisted desire to mold me into his own image. Consequences be damned. Whatever the reason, he became obsessed with fixing me. He scoured the internet, his bloodshot eyes scanning countless articles and forums, searching for a cure for my silence, for a way to unlock the Peppa he believed lay dormant within me. He stumbled upon a theory, a fringe belief peddled by a community of online zealots that claimed prolonged exposure to the Peppa Pig cartoon could somehow rewire a child's brain, unlocking their hidden potential. It was a dangerous, ludicrous idea, but for my father, desperate for a solution, it was a lifeline. He began subjecting me to hours of Peppa Pig, the cheerful Jingle becoming a form of torture. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The farmhouse, once a place of isolation, now felt like a prison. The walls seemed to close in on me, the air thick with the stench of my father's desperation and my own fear. I retreated further into myself, seeking solace in the silence he so desperately wanted to extinguish. I became a ghost flitting through the darkened hallways, my presence barely acknowledged. My mother, her spirit broken by grief and fear, could only watch helplessly as my father descended further into madness. One night, driven to the brink by my continued silence, my father snapped. The details are a blur, a chaotic jumble of images and sounds that my mind has thankfully suppressed, but the aftermath was etched into my memory as indelible as a brand. The world went quiet. The incessant chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves outside my window, the creaking of the old farmhouse all faded into a distant hum. My senses, overwhelmed by the trauma, retreated inward, leaving me adrift in a sea of nothingness. I don't know how much time passed. Hours, days, an eternity. Time had lost all meaning. There was only the pain, a dull ache that throbbed in my head, and the overwhelming sense of detachment, as if I were floating above my own body, watching the scene unfold from afar. My father's panicked breaths filled the room, each inhale a shuddering gasp, each exhale a strangled sob. He moved around me, his shadow looming large and menacing in the dim light, his touch surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the wound he had inflicted. His voice, when he finally spoke, was a raspy whisper, thick with remorse and a chilling practicality. "It's okay, Peppa," he croaked, his words a broken lullaby. He lowered me gently into the cold embrace of the earth, his touch surprisingly tender for one who had inflicted such pain. As the dirt rained down on me, burying me alive in the darkness, I saw a flicker of something akin to grief in his eyes. But it was a fleeting emotion, quickly replaced by a steely resolve. He had made his decision, and he would see it through to the end. He would bury his secret, his shame, his failure beneath 6 feet of earth. And with it he would bury any lingering shred of guilt or remorse. In the days that followed, my father played the role of the grieving parent to perfection. He moved through the world with a stoic sadness, his eyes downcast, his shoulders slumped, his voice thick with barely suppressed tears. Life, as it always does, went on. The seasons changed, the leaves turned from vibrant green to fiery orange to brittle brown, then disappeared altogether, leaving the trees bare and skeletal against the winter sky. The world continued to spin, oblivious to the darkness that lingered at the edge of the woods, in the shadow of the dilapidated farmhouse. My father, freed from the burden of his secret, seemed to find a strange sort of peace. He threw himself into his work, his farm becoming his sole focus, his only solace. He rarely spoke of me, but when he did, it was with a wistful sadness, a carefully constructed facade that hid the truth beneath. And the cheerful jingle of Peppa Pig continued to play on television screens across the country, its infectious melody a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of a seemingly idyllic world. For in the heart of every monster there is a story, a twisted path that led them to their monstrous deeds.